Welcome to Quicksand, the most important news in pharma and biotech this week. The FDA began adding four-letter meaningless suffixes at the end of newly approved biologics non-proprietary names, signaling a shift in policy from only adding the suffixes to biosimilars non-proprietary names since 2015. The first editions of the meaningless suffixes came for approval of Roche's Hemlibra and emicizumab-KXWH, one of the first new medicines in nearly 2 decades to treat people with hemophilia A, and approval of Ultragenyx Pharmaceuticals' Mepsevii, Vistronidase alpha-VJBK, to treat pediatric and adult patients with a rare inherited condition called SLY syndrome. Back in January, FDA finalized guidance on how biosimilars and their biologic reference products names should include this four-letter FDA-designated meaningless suffix attached at the end of the non-proprietary name. Previously, only new biosimilars had the suffixes attached to their names. In addition, some biosimilars have yet to be assigned meaningless suffixes. For example, the first biosimilar approved by FDA was for Sandoz's Zarxio, the non-proprietary name of which included the suffix -SNDZ. And though FDA has said in a proposed rule that it will change the name from filgrastim-SNDZ to filgrastim-BFLM, in addition to changing several others, the agency has gone back and forth on some of the provisions related to the new naming policy. In June 2016, FDA proposed that sponsors would submit up to 10 proposed suffixes in the order of the applicant's preference, with supporting analyses demonstrating that the proposed suffixes meet factors described in guidance, though then the agency withdrew that plan. The FDA has created a policy framework for cellular therapies and other regenerative medicines by releasing 2 draft and 2 final guidance documents. Publication of the text builds on the 21st Century Cures Act by setting criteria for the new Regenerative Medicine Advanced Therapy, or RMAT designation, and outlining the benefits of the regulatory status. Given 2 of the documents are finalized versions of existing texts, and a third seeks to simplify the regulation of devices that enable regenerative treatments, the RMAT guidance is the novel part of the framework for drug developers. In the guidance, the FDA takes the RMAT status created by the 21st Century Cures Act, contextualizes it against other regulatory designations, and explains how and why companies may want to apply. RMAT is open to investigational regenerative medicine therapies that treat, modify, reverse, or cure serious conditions and have generated promising preliminary clinical evidence of efficacy. The FDA cites a single-arm, open-labeled study of a skin-burn cell therapy and a phase 2 dose-finding trial of a heart failure regenerative medicine as examples of the types of experiments that could provide preliminary evidence of efficacy. Candidates that receive RMAT status will receive all of the benefits of the FDA's Fast Track and Breakthrough designation. The law that created RMAT also covers accelerated approvals and how to satisfy the subsequent post-approval requirements. The FDA is accepting comments on the RMAT text and draft device guidance for 90 days. The final guidance documents clarify when cell and tissue-based products are exempt from the established regulations and how the FDA interprets minimal manipulation and homologous use. The FDA in October issued complete responses to 325 abbreviated new drug applications and approved or tentatively approved 101 ANDAs, the highest numbers in a single month since the enactment of Generic Drug User Fee Amendments, or GDUFA. FDA approved 87 ANDAs, including 7 first-time generic approvals, and granted 14 more tentative ANDA approvals. The figures come from FDA's first monthly performance report for its generic drug program under GDUFA 2, beating out the agency's previous high of 193 complete responses in September 2016 and 100 approvals, 88 approvals and 12 tentative, in June 2017. Under GDUFA 2, FDA agreed to tighter review timelines for generic drugs, committing to act on 90% of standard original ANDAs within 10 months of their submission date. The agency also has taken recent steps to expand its priority review program to a broader set of generic drugs in an effort to increase competition. In fiscal year 2017, FDA set a record for the most ANDAs approved in a single year, with 763 approvals and 174 tentative approvals. Most months, FDA issues between 100 and 190 complete responses to ANDAs, with the agency issuing fewer than 100 complete responses in just 19 out of 60 months under GDUFA 1. The lowest number of complete responses for ANDAs in a single month was 43 in October 2014. The FDA approved Roche's Hemlibra, a new medicine for hemophilia A that the Swiss drug maker is counting on to help to offset eroding sales of older medicines going off patent. But the FDA slapped Roche's medicine with a black box warning, the most serious available, about the risk of blood clots, giving a boost to shares in rival Shire, whose products lead the $11 billion hemophilia drug market. The U.S. regulator approved Roche's drug, previously known as ACE 910 or emicibimab, as a once-weekly injection for adults and pediatric patients with hemophilia A who have developed inhibitors or resistance to other treatments. Hemophilia is a bleeding disorder in which a clotting protein is missing or does not function normally. Roche plans to charge about $482,000 for the first-year treatment and $448,000 a year after that. Hemlibra, which analysts estimate will produce about $1.6 billion in annual sales by 2022, is a key pillar of Roche CEO Severin Schwann's plan to introduce new blockbusters to offset declining sales of older medicine. Billionaire Bill Gates turns his philanthropic eye towards Alzheimer's disease with a $50 million investment in the UK-based Dementia Discovery Fund. The 2-year-old DDF, which is run by venture capital firm SV Health and backed by several big biopharma companies and medical charity Alzheimer's Research UK, is focused on backing groups that discover and develop disease-modifying drugs for Alzheimer's, which, despite decades of research, could still only be treated with a handful of drugs with limited efficacy. It is the first time Gates, one of the richest men in the world, has used his financial punch to take the fight to dementia, and the additional funding will allow the DDF to back more companies and recruit additional personnel, including a chief executive to lead the fund and direct the efforts of its scientific advisory board drawn mainly from industry. Gates is dipping into his own pocket to back the DDF, keeping the investment separate from the $40 billion Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is mainly devoted to disease affecting the developing world, such as malaria and polio. He told the Financial Times that the $50 million donation would be matched by at least the same amount in other private investments and a similar amount in future grants. Among the priorities identified by Gates is a better understanding of the disease process, earlier diagnosis, and a more diverse drug pipeline, greater patient recruitment into trials, and improved use of R&D data. Since being set up, the DDF has invested in 12 companies, including immunoneurology startup Elector, stem cell company Gen2, mitochondrial disease player Mitochondrial Bio, gene silencing firm Ribometrics, and microglial cell specialist Tiaka Therapeutics. Thank you for listening to the Quicksand, episode 6, November 20th, 2017.